think he is very much good enough. But Bunnyhoppor versus BoarControl is coming up next. Double warrior band settle. We're back to normal life here. As again, I still struggle just to deal with the strategy of leaving warrior up. But we see that's not the case this time around. No priests for Bunnyhoppor to take his time over either. It's going to be the Hunter Demon Hunter Rogue going up against the Druid Warlock Demon Hunter. So again, something I've been loving week in, week out of Grandmasters is just variety. The lineups every week, and not only changing throughout weeks, but changing throughout players as well. Like, BoarControl, one of the best players in Europe, no doubt, in my mind. Bunnyhoppor, you don't even have to talk about his legacy so far. Both bringing just different lineups to the table here. With the two of the decks that aren't Demon Hunter and Warrior, completely different. Crazy.
Yeah, and I think it's important that Bunnyhoppor didn't bring Priest this week, because he did issue an apology on Twitter for making us sit through as many Priest mirrors as he did. But as any good parent knows, an apology doesn't mean anything if they just reinforce the same action again afterwards, right? Like, if they do it again, then they're not really sorry. So this is important because it shows that Bunnyhoppor believes in what was clearly a heartfelt apology for wasting our time with Priest mirrors previously.
I was just sat there trying to work out, are we the parents? Is Bunnyhoppor the parent in this? Are we the children? I'm confused about where that was going, but I do agree most of all, no priests means no crazy mirror matches. But what is crazy is the fact it just disappeared. I expected it to be less. I didn't think everyone would just go, nope. Going from like the most talked about hyped class and deck to just not being brought in less than a week. Literally less than a week. Is madness to me. I'm not saying it's a wrong decision. It's just something I don't think we've ever seen. Just a class without buffs or nerfs affecting it, just being completely disregarded in 1 week. Absolute nuts. But I'm excited to see these two players play. And Sottle, our break of the Quest Warlocks is over. We have another Quest Warlock with BoarControl here.
We do, and Boar's actually been playing a ton of this deck on stream as well. He has a slightly unique twist on the way he's put the build together. I believe he is still running his little one Frozen Shadow Weaver in the deck, which is slightly different than other people are bringing. And I do actually quite like the card. I played with this list a little bit. It's not my go-to list for ladder, but I did mess around with it. And it's kind of like how your opponents can use Frozen Shadow Weavers against you to really mess with your removal options, because they just freeze one of your minions on play, like say a Crazed Netherwing or something like that. And then just go face with all of their minions, and suddenly your Dark Skies doesn't work because you've just got 5 health on your side of the board of the minion that you've got frozen. You can kind of do that exact same thing to people as the Quest Warlock by just freezing a minion to then juice more value out of your Dark Skies by just leaving, like a 3 or 4 health minion frozen on the board. And then next turn they have to develop more, but you then also have a 4 attack minion to cut into some of that health that they've generated on the next turn, and then get even more value out of your Dark Skies on the following turn after. So that's just one application I've found for the card, and that's outside of obviously all the vanilla applications of it just being really good against Demon Hunter, as we've seen time and time and time again. So yeah, I think it's a pretty smart card in the list, honestly.
And this is what I like to see as well, because I think I'm probably the most vocal person at the moment about Warlock's huge weakness to highly aggressive high burst decks for the early game. And if you're going to sub out, say, an Abyssal Summoner or a tech card against aggro, I'm never going to be too upset about that. If Frozen Shadow Weaver's the card, we can find out as we see it played more. But just having more anti-aggro tools to stop you just getting that so much early damage in is always a good thing for me. Meanwhile, Bunnyhoppor is going to be bringing that it's still the Demon Hunter lineup there, but with Rogue and Hunter. And as a gentleman and scholar, Bunnyhoppor is bringing aggro. So in that box here to get that out of the way. Looks like he's going to go for the Demon Hunter first, though. And the Vampira, the Spectral Sight, looks like a fairly standard list, actually. Just a lot of two off something.
It does. It has really surprised me that we've reached a point where Vampira Scoundrel is just core in Demon Hunter. Like, that just seems so strange to me, that with all the powerful cards they have available, Vampira Scoundrel is good enough to get in there. But I guess that's just the argument, right? Like, their cards are so good, why not discover more of them?
Well, sometimes you get to play 3, right? Which is the big difference. It's not even you get to play all the ones you don't get to play in your deck. It's that sometimes you get to play an extra Metamorphosis. Sometimes you get an extra Twin Slice. Insane. But yeah, we will see. I'm excited for this one. This is a matchup I really want to see a lot more of. with just Demon Hunter versus Warlock, because it is the relentless aggression from Demon Hunter versus the insane removal and healing from Warlock. It just interests me greatly to see how this matchup is going to end up in terms of newspaper. Or maybe it just ends up being 50-50, I don't know.
I think it's a 50-50 matchup. I kind of pressed you into an exact statement, but I don't think I've actually made one myself. I actually think it is a 49 to 51% in either direction. I think it's in that range somewhere.
I was just waiting for you to go. You say 50.4%
Yeah.
Matchup to Warlock. Ever so slightly favoured. You're like, oh god, here we go. You see what BoarControl have? The Quest and a Questing Explorer.
I can't believe this is a thing we have to talk about now. He has the Quest in his opening hand. Check number one.
I was more... Okay, yes, I did say that, to be fair. I was more going to go into the slightly more interesting interactions between Questing Explorer and Turn 2.
Yes.
Which I'm going to break down for a second.
Sure. So, in this matchup, based on board state aside, I would expect to see Questing played on Turn 2. Just because it's an aggro matchup and you just kind of want to go fast and the extra board presence is good for you. However, in a slower matchup when you're going first, you'll more often play Questing Explorer on turn 4. So you will go life tap on 2, life tap on 3, life tap plus questing on turn 4. And that's maximizing your card draw over the course of 3 turns. That dynamic's reversed when you're on coin, because you can't do that curve when you're on coin because of the extra card in your hand, meaning that you'll mill a card. So generally on coin, you're playing questing on 2 regardless, unless it's against rogue. Sometimes you'll wait until 3 in that case, just because of seal fate reasons and so on. But generally... Wait, what's happening here? Oh, okay.
BoarControl already fallen asleep at the ever so famous Bunnyhoppor play speed, which is extremely slow. I'm not used to seeing Bunnyhoppor.
But here, it doesn't seem like all of that efficient card draw business is super important. However, the card Dark Skies is in hand, which means that maybe efficient card draw is more important. Because if you play Questing Explorer, your hand size is the same. Whereas if you life tap, your hand size just got bigger, which then makes Dark Skies a more powerful removal tool. So I would imagine, motivated by that, we're seeing BoarControl life tap here instead of play the questing.
Yeah, even if he ends up going tap Dark Skies questing tap, then that just still makes sense, right? There's no point playing a minion for board presence that you intend to kill, maybe, the turn after. So yeah, and again, this is where the deck becomes interesting, because I think although that is a very level 1 style of information and play of when you play Quest Explorer early on, I think there's a lot more to the deck that goes deeper, not with Quest Explorer specifically, but just with card usage in general.
There is, yeah.
There's so many different ways to use all of your cards. I think learning that and using them most in the optimal fashion is where there's a lot of exploring to go in the deck.
Okay, Boar has so many options now, because now with Moarg Rain drawn, he doesn't actually have to worry quite so much about Dark Skies anymore, because it's not necessarily his go-to clear. Like if Satyr Overseer comes down next turn, he doesn't really have to be counting the total amount of health on board to smoke it with Dark Skies, because he just has Moarg Rain to take care of it anyway. But that play does use a Moarg, which of course is a very valuable card in the matchup for maximizing your healing later in the game.
Yeah, I actually really like, because he has 2, Rain of Fire into Questing Explorer this turn.
What?
It helps with... Well, Rain of Fire kills off the 1/1s and puts a little bit of damage on the Battle Fiend. Means if there is a sidekick, then it is reduced a little bit. It puts the 2/3, which challenges the Battle Fiend. If the Quest Explorer dies, it can just be down to just hero power and trade, which is also fine. It doesn't plan to use a Moarg, and also at worst, it softens up the board for a Dark Skies afterwards.
Does it soften up the board for a Dark Skies afterwards, though? Because you've reduced your hand size significantly over just life tapping, though. I'm kind of okay with that line, but I think it would be contradictory to what Boar did on turn 2, where he didn't play the Questing Explorer. I think it would depart too much from that line of thinking for it to be viable with the way he's played the game so far. The information did change because he drew the Moarg,
right?
But I think Boar is just kind of committed to this, making Dark Skies good in his hands right now. And
this might be where one of our differences of opinion kick in here. Whereas I think either casting Dark Skies that turn or removal that turn's fine, because the problem is, it's great having a big Dark Skies, tapping a lot, but tapping deals 2 damage to you, and if you wait for Dark Skies, these minions are doing damage to you every single turn. And although there's the Moarg, there's no healing for BoarControl, so I think you could have took that turn to get a minion on board challenging the battle team, clear off some bit, and then just carry on with the game after that. Because for now, this is just still just getting beaten up, and if he plays Dark Skies, it's another opportunity.
Well, it's Rain of Fire Dark Skies here, which I think he's counted. I was actually in this exact situation in one of the games against TJ, and I had to count whether I needed to Rain of Fire this turn or whether I could tap and go Rain of Fire Dark Skies the following turn. I ended up doing the exact same thing that Boar did here. But I do want to cover a couple of points that you mentioned, right? Because firstly, life tap does not. It's not as simple as saying life tap deals 2 damage for you, because life tap gets you closer to Broodmothers, which heal you. It gets you closer to Plot Twists, which heal you, and it gets you closer to Nether Breath, which heal you. So the average amount of damage that each life tap actually does to you is a lot less than 2, if it's even negative at all. On top of that, your play uses removal, which Boar preserved by not spending anything that turn. So now he's cleared that board by just passing 1 turn and taking some damage, which stretches out the removal he has available in his hand, which then again can also heal him because he has more removal left over. So I think by getting greedier and taking more damage, you can actually take less damage over the course of the game, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Okay. Is that Anchorman gif where it's just I don't believe you? is my response to that whole sentence there. So mainly
fine.
because at least I think that you don't want to take tons of early damage. I don't think you have to be greedy to do that well in this matchup. I think a lot of the problems I've seen is when early damage has been left open for greed, and then they just have more damage to follow up with. And there are times when, although I completely get your point with the life taps get you to your healing, sometimes they don't, and then you die. It is one of the problems as well. So we'll see how it plays out so far. But he did get access to that Broodmother, and now BoarControl does have the Plot Twist as well, so he's getting there.
His quest is on 8 currently, and his hand size is 8 next turn, which means he can be on 16 or 15, sorry, if he wants to be. But again, something I found in this matchup is just using your cards and fighting for tempo for as long as you possibly can, because there's actually minimal upside in casting Plot Twist before it immediately completes the quest. If you want to talk about, things that can potentially be too greedy and cause you to take too much damage, Plot Twisting early and not just using your cards to fight for the board, I think is one of the things that can definitely cause that.
Our enemies will fall.
Wave down. Kill a Quest Explorer, which on a certain level has to be chalked up as a bit of a victory for BoarControl.
Netherwing active here.
Along with Coil, he could just whip in 2 damage face, draw a card as well.
Yep.
Although it is very difficult to not want to play Abyssal. Obviously, if the Abyssal is just going to be traded into by minions you've left alive, it is much less powerful, of course.
His hand's just begging for card draw, though. He has Plot Twist, so he wants to keep his hand size high where possible. Yeah. He has Moarg, so he really wants to find Nether Breath sooner rather than later. Boom.
One.
Yep.
No Warglaves yet. It's hurting Bunnyhoppor a little bit.
It is.
BoarControl isn't running an Ooze. Although he runs a Shadow Weaver, which has a similar effect as being very powerful against weapons, you can't break it, which means if Bunnyhoppor had a Warglaive at this point, he can start swinging with it and guarantee at least a few swings there before the game ends.
Yeah, there are spots where it's exactly the same. Because quite often, you're coming down to straight up race scenarios towards the end of the game. So, oozing the last charge of the weapon, which is normally about all you get to ooze anyway, because most Warglaives get used up in 1 or 2 turns after they come down. So oozing 1 charge of the weapon versus Frozen Shadow Weaver for 1 turn while you end the game can quite often just be the same thing anyway. Kablam! Ooh, minion! Minion, you say?
And I think this just goes to the approach of something I've talked about a little bit, where although Demon Hunter is very early game and aggressively focused, its damage output never really peters off. Unless it just has the horrible games where it just doesn't draw any card draw, right? So
Right.
I think this is Bunnyhoppor just saying, well, anything I play gets eaten by this Netherwing. What if I clear it off and open up more board-focused options for next turn? It's going to be slapped down by this Abyssal, of course, but I think that's just a note of Bunnyhoppor saying, I don't have to rush this because my hand says I can't.
That's fair, we also need to point out that this is a one Abyssal Summoner list from BoarControl as well, whereas Bunny hasn't seen any Moargs, hasn't seen any Nether Breaths right now, and has limited information on what's in the hand. Sometimes you can know exactly what's in a Quest Warlock's hand if you're paying attention to, Sense Demons and the Brood Mothers and when they've gone off, and did they have a dragon that activated this card earlier, and yada yada yada, but there's not that much information going on in Boar's hand between the the Rain of Fire, the Moarg, the Nether Breath, the Plot Twist, and the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. So I think Bunny is right here to respect Moarg Nether Breath more than he respects Abyssal Summoner, which is kind of what his play lent towards.
Yeah, and just a note in case you've not seen too much. At worst, you can Moarg Nether Breath your own Moarg. So if that play, if you have those cards, there is always a target as well. So you don't have to think, well, we need to clear every minion because you can Moarg it. It's like, well, no, because at worst it can always end. And sometimes it's right to aim a hero. It doesn't give your opponent the buff.
Right. Cool.
Now Bunnyhoppor knows what 2 of those cards are in hand. His both Brood Mothers been drawn for you.
Tap to 13, 9 cards in hand. So if he Moarg Breath Plot Twists, he completes the quest next turn with the natural draw. Seems powerful.
Agreed. And this is the tricky part, right? And this is something, again, we can get into as time goes on, if this sticks around, is I think a lot of players would go, oh, okay, I can do that. But the problem is that Plot Twists away my Brood Mothers, which are taunts. But Brood Mothers are also healing. And I think that's going to be the biggest discussion point going forward, is when you play a Brood Mother and when you hold it to shuffle in. I think it's very close right now.
Not particularly against Demon Hunter, as, Boar looks like he's playing the turn as expected here, but for sure worth thinking about. I think against Demon Hunter specifically, I would much rather have them in my deck than in my hand. Because 4/6 taunts just aren't real against Demon Hunter. It just feels like they just smash through them so easily. Like Warglaives or not, they can just plow through and keep damage going to the face. Whereas constantly redrawing them and getting actual, guaranteed healing out of them time after time after time, I think is a much more secure way of winning the game against Demon Hunter. Or not pleased with the hand he redrew. Did hit 2 of the big bombs that you'd love to be life tapping into for 0. But he does have some clear and a second heal that's already activated by the dragons. I don't think he's in the worst position.
Most importantly, based on how this turn ends up for Bunnyhoppor,
He can Alex.
Some worlds where he can just Alex, Alex Bunnyhoppor and say, let's ride. It's like, there's an 8/8 on board, can you kill it? No, okay, you lose.
Yeah, that is the Demon Hunter's job in this matchup. If you can't keep the pressure up to the point where there's just no way on earth that they can Alexstrasza you in the face, well, I'm afraid that's your problem.
Sounds like a you.
Yep.
Does get the hero power though, so does at least get to generate the extra 2/2 here from the Satan. It's a certain level of pressure. The question is on 22.
Excuse me, I think you'll find.
Okay, you're ahead of me because you've got.
It's early on my spectator. Yeah, I'm just trolling you.
Now I think with the Crazed Netherwing and the free lifestyle.
Whoa!
That's up a little too well.
And now this is minions in play with Mali Soulfire to follow up.
Most importantly as well, Altrius is gone, been used.
Yep.
So the odds on doing the big Altrius turns are nil.
Two
Look at the
absolute
difference.
sacks of nothing and a frozen Shadow Weaver off the skull.
Good news is though he can. I say good news. News. He can pre-equip it and know it's not going to get oozed. Right,
That's true.
Or doesn't play one, so at least, and that's as we said, the cards work in a similar fashion, but there are key differences. The Bunnyhoppor knows he wouldn't just lose the weapon.
Right.
So now where you start counting lethal, when they're on the teens of hell, always just check your hand to make sure you've not won.
So, before even life tapping and seeing the information here, I want 4 to go face. I'm going to coil a 1-1, and I'm happy using this Nether Breath to kill the 4-3. I think that should create a secure enough board state that just Mally Soulfire ends up ending the game next turn, regardless of most hands from my opponent.
When you said 4 to go face as the first line, I was like, okay, Nether Breath face.
Okay, Soulfire face, first thing we do.
Yeah, I was like, you can't mean Soulfire. Is there...
You could actually just
the
play
same point.
Brood Mother alongside that whole turn as well.
Does he need to use the Nether Breath to trade, though, if he just goes face?
Does he need it to go face?
The big Mally Ghost!
Sure, yeah, same thing. Yeah, this is better. This is exactly everything I was talking about, but executed in a smarter way.
And this is the question we were talking about earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you play a big minion versus a Demon Hunter, the big question is, can they kill it?
Right.
Like, most Demon Hunter actually struggles outside of Altrius and the weapon to get this job done. Just gonna leave the Malagos up. Just saying.
Yeah. Wait, what's that? I'm at 9 and you have a Malagos on board. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, that
Another round. Job. Good. BoarControl just about stayed ahead of the curve there against Bunnyhoppor and stayed at not only reasonable life total, but always had the options. And again, I do think the timely one of Abyssal Summoner there really helped him out, as it just cemented some of that mid game, which is what the card is so good at doing. Is just you play it and it has to be respected because it's a 9/9 or an 8/8, right? With Taunt, you just can't really be ignored.
Yeah, and that was a big break point in the matchup where Bunny kind of committed to board control by shooting minions with the Metamorphosis as opposed to just going face. But again, like I hope I explained it at the time well enough, but like he hadn't seen any healing at that point in terms of the big heals, the Moags and the Nether Breaths, and this is a 1 Abyssal list, so it's very easy. It would have been very easy for like us to cast a vision that and be like, well, how are you ever winning board again? He's just got a 7/7 this turn. But that's the one card in Boar's deck that was able to create something that oppressive that turn. And Bunny was still kind of able to deal with it with the hand that he had backing it up anyway. So I certainly am not going to rag too much on Bunny for that play.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I would go as far as to say, in that matchup, if you're the Demon Hunter, you almost want your opponent to have Nether Breaths in their opening hand. Because you want them to just use them up. Maybe without Moags, and maybe to just use it while you've not pushed much damage anyway. You've not committed to Metamorphosis or weapon swings. Get them used on my early minions, and then we get to play the game, I think, is the overall outcome there for the Demon Hunter, or what they want it to be anyway. But talk another win up for that Quest Warlock in that matchup, and in general for Grandmasters so far today. We are going to go to a quick break while we set up game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.
This is a serious question.
Who comes up with these questions?
TJ.
Of course.
I'd honestly probably die in a zombie apocalypse. I'm not a fast runner.
Who's the buffest GM? Oh man, I don't even know. I guess Zelay is probably the buffest GM. Is he?
I don't take Bloody Face because his name doesn't inspire me in that situation.
Right off the bat, I want to take Kalento. He seems like he's like a really cool, calm, collected guy in a crisis. He's Ukrainian, so he's already kind of probably pretty badass and tough, just going off that. I'd want to take Zelay. He's a good friend of mine, so I love hanging out with him. He works out, so he'd probably beat up some zombies. I think I'll go with purple. He's another really good friend of mine. He lives in Canada. We could maybe retreat somewhere in Canada, and maybe the zombies are nicer there, you know, because it's Canada. Everyone's nice there, even the zombies.
Monsanto, Gallon, and Firebat. Gallon's a smart, bright lad who can help me stay alive, and I need some bait, so Firebat Monsanto would help with that.
So I would take Monsanto because he always makes me laugh with his deadpan humor. I'd take Eddie because he's like always super positive. And I'll take Colento because he'll probably scare the zombies away with his seriousness.
Bunnyhoppor as a nurse, 100%. You don't want someone to break the humor, so I'm taking Casey. Probably Frozen, or actually, sorry, excuse me, Frodan. I guess he's not a Grandmaster, but he's in shape. You need a Chad in the group, and Frodan is definitely Hearthstone's version of the Chad.
We are back to continue our final match of the day here between Bunnyhoppor and BoarControl. True zoo going on here so far. But yeah, BoarControl did take the win there with the Warlock going against the Demon Hunter. So again, the debate over the matchups and the power of the deck will continue. But I will say, BoarControl did make it look quite strong. I think the big payoff there was really just not having to use the Nether Breaths in the early game. Really must have made him feel comfortable in the mid and late game of that matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even the setup at the end, even though Boar and I, disagreed on instinct on how to execute it, or at least my instinct versus his actual considered play as the rope burned down, his way almost certainly much, much better at the end there. That both of those plays come from a place of exploiting a weakness of Demon Hunter in the late game, which is they're very linear in terms of what their final health total is. Because if you have minions in play, the only way those minions really go bye-bye against Demon Hunter is if they smack their face into them. So if you have minions in play, you can kind of just count on that minion damage being able to go face and end the game. So, be it through the Broodmother and Nether Breath of my play or the probably much better Malagos Mortal Coil play that Boar made, if you just stick some minions in the late game in that situation, you can race very effectively with Quest Warlock, which I think is, one of the reasons that does push it towards being a more even matchup than some people might expect.
Yeah, and that is going to leave BoarControl with a Demon Hunter and a Druid to go up against the rest of Bunnyhoppor's lineup. But now we're going to see once again the Druid versus Demon Hunter matchup. And I will say this, regardless of what we think about Druid, is it good enough, is it not, BoarControl seems to have been playing a lot of Druid lately. So at least he seems to at least favor it to a certain extent, not even just in competitive, playing a lot on his stream.
Yeah, but on his stream, he's been playing, you know, the fun deck, as he calls it, with all of the dragons. Whereas for submission, he's just dropped good old-fashioned Spell Druid here, which is it's pretty interesting, the dynamic, right? The Boar comes up with this deck, several other people submit it to GM over the course of a couple of weeks, but Boar never has, and now he's back on Druid, but he's back on Spell Druid and not the Dragon Druid that he innovated. It's pretty interesting.
Just the master plan, right? Become respected enough that people believe your deck tweets and what you're playing are good. Make them play the bad decks. And then you just swoop in with the with the more refined versions overall. So very interested to see how it plays out. But yeah, just a subtle broke down there. BoarControl playing pretty much the same Druid list we've been seeing all day so far. But it is just the double exotic Mount Seller, double Glowfly, and Ysera, and then everything else around it support. Whereas Bunnyhoppor on his Demon Hunter is, pretty much just playing the regular list. It's just going to be two pretty standard decks right now going up against each other.
Demons.
This is always a weird one for me.
I got you, friend.
You just drop it on one as a sidekick because it's so good with any other minion in your deck. That is it just good enough to play as a one drop on its own? I think I hold this a lot of the time, but maybe incorrect.
Yeah. Getting a 1-2 down that can just start trucking away and deal some damage is one thing, but also, like, what minion is he really waiting to use Beaming Psychic on with the hand that he's got right now? So I feel like the curve just kind of makes sense just to play it out naturally 1-2-3. Speaking of playing it out naturally 1-2-3, though, Boar's turns are kind of locked in, it looks like right now, for turn 2 and turn 4. So it becomes a question of whether this crystal power that he kept is going to end up getting played.
Interesting point as well, because you suddenly start piecing together some kind of weird maths of if I don't crystal power this 1-2 and I'm not going to play it for 4 turns, is that just 5 damage?
Right.
And then does that, should I have just done it? Which is what your point is, right? Of like, does crystal powering a 1-2 now, due to time played, actually just turns out better than crystal powering later on at a maybe more threatening, air quotes, target?
Yeah. Mount Seller bites the dust here. I think it's still fine to hold on to, though, because Boar doesn't necessarily have to coin Overgrowth on the following turns, especially when he doesn't have a payoff for it right now. So his turn 3 might end up being Fungal Fortunes again, while crystal powering a more relevant minion to be able to remove it. There's a lot of ways this hand can play out, and there are a lot of ways where you end up removing a more important minion, even if you don't end up healing with the crystal power.
Yep, of course, the Satyr, one of the high priorities for crystal power. It's a clean kill without the help of the sidekick, of course. And it's a priority kill because cards like Bugbeam aren't going to be active, or at least active for 0 until much later in the game. So you don't really want to spend 3 mana to kill a minion you can spend 1 mana doing anyway.
Right.
Same goes for rare.
I think that was just a hand size concerns Moonfire from Boar there on the previous turn. There's a good chance he just gets to Moonfire next turn anyway, but he might as well do it now and reduce the 1 damage if he's going to end up having to do it anyway.
Yep, he could have coined into crystal power to kill the 1-2, but again, that just seems like a very high usage. Too well.
Yep.
You love the mana burn here for Bunnyhoppor if he goes for it.
Yeah, mana burn looks exciting. Lots of key turns with key mana breakpoints.
Just Druid's just so predictable, isn't it? Not too much of a surprise, but again, Bunnyhoppor this kind of weird Altruist hand, similar to what we saw in the previous game. It's just minimal card draw. The Altruist way too early in the game, at least in my opinion. Not much power to put down going forward.
Or does end up on the coin overgrowth line, though. No real relevant minion came down that needed to be addressed from Boar's side, so he's just happy, just ramping turn after turn.
And here's an interesting point now. We talked about the breakpoints for Druid. Bunnyhoppor really wants to mana burn going into a 7 mana turn from Druid is one of the best ones. I did wonder whether the fact that now he has 2, but the first one he had the Clay Bound for next turn, means that Bunnyhoppor should just mana burn now.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because his mana's locked up until, like,
Yeah.
War's turn 8 at this point, if he doesn't do it now. Yeah.
Which feels kind of bad, because you know this mana burn is going to be so much less impactful. Because he can still glow fly. He can still cast any spells that aren't overflow. So it's just a shame that because of these glaive bounds that Bunnyhoppor's had to not get the most out.
Right. Tree emotes, best emotes, by the way. Fight me.
Tree motes.
Nope. No, I definitely don't mean that.
That looks pretty straightforward to me. And that means Bunnyhoppor's going to take a few minutes to decide.
Mm-hmm.
So much damage, and now, because of these blade tiles, suddenly this Altruist in hand doesn't look so bad. The Altruist Twin Slice, the I-Beam as well, not for next turn, but maybe the turn after. Means that that's just damage from hand that, even if there's a Mount Seller turn, it might not matter.
Yikes. It's always the problem when you have a hand like that is that, you know, we call it Spell Druid, but the real big payoff cards are the minions, right? Like, the Exotic Mount Seller is just the best card in the deck. From my perspective. So when you have a hand like this that really needs a Mount Seller to pay it off, like how do you get to that Mount Seller? Because you can't draw it off Fungal Fortunes. It just doesn't work like that. So a lot of times, unless you hit exactly Overflow, you're just kind of stuck without anything to really make your hand work.
Guess that needs some loot hoarders.
Yeah, sure.
Wait, but then you discard those!
Yeah.
This is a tough one now, though. Mount Seller so key, as you mentioned, but also there's just nothing else that pays it off, right? Glowfly Swarm just isn't often enough versus Demon Hunter, especially at this point. They can actually ignore a lot of it. But also Ysera is too unreliable as well. I guess the Iron Bar means that Ysera's an option or an out.
Yeah.
But Kane just laughs at it. That's the fear, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a pretty rotten game of Hearthstone from BoarControl side. Bunny really hasn't had like the most oppressive draw either, obviously, but when you cast 2 Fungal Fortunes and discard 2 Mount Sellers, you're probably going to struggle to win some games of Hearthstone.
And also just was the way the turn or the game ramped for BoarControl, where he had to use coin and ramped into 6 mana. Which, yes, he got mana burned, but it just limited some of the other stuff he could do as well, as it made everything just a little bit too long. So I'm gonna go for the Wild Growth now to try and draw something. I imagine Glowfly.
Have a Bog Beam left, so answering this Glade-bound Adept problem is
I can't hold
going to be near impossible.
Was this actually better than Borrow for a while?
Probably. He needs to find Ysera, right? He has no other cards that actually do anything, apart from the Glowfly Swarms and Ysera, so he needs to power cycle to get those. It's no good just like surviving turn after turn if you're not actually achieving anything that wins the game.
So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I grow impatient.
Can't leave. Is it actually 14?
Yeah.
It's 14, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Because he can obviously either beam his own minion and proc the Eldritch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he goes Altruis, left, right, hero power. I think that's 14.
Time grows short.
Sounded like a cheat code for a 90s video game out here.
Is it cold in the shadow?
Or something like you, Sarah, but there's a big glowfly and multi-spawn option here. Not that it will really matter. Old Altruist getting the job done.
They are getting pretty big.
Yeah, I guess Power of the Wild does help. Or double Power of the Wild, maybe that is big enough.
They are
And heal as
getting
well with
very
Crystal Power.
large. Problem is, like, even if Altruist isn't lethal, it's still going to be a board clear. So Boar's just kind of out of stuff at that point.
Do you think they're going Soul instead? And with that, he can't heal as well.
Mm-hmm. So right now, Altruist does 1, 2, 3, 4 AoE. And the face can kill the other one, which means 6 and 4 go face. Yeah, it's comfortably lethal. I-beam as well, wasn't even factoring that in.
Yep.
The fires of vengeance.
Basically, a lot of damage.
He's going to square it up. 1 game to 1. Bunnyhoppor tying up the series now with 4. Pretty tough matchup for the Druid, but it does seem like Druid is still struggling in places here and there. I do, wonder long term what the matchup against Quest Warlock is going to look like, and how much of that deck people were considering when they chose to bring Spell Druid back into the fray this week for the final week of Grandmasters, with everything on the line, of course. But so far, I mean, both decks are struggling a little bit, right? Druid's struggling and Quest Warlock is struggling. Like, where does the power lie in this dynamic?
Right, and it's just, again, that was a tough game just to watch as a single game there, because, yes, BoarControl did get rid of 2 of his 2 mount sellers, which would have really changed the game around a little bit. But it happens sometimes. It's the failure rate of playing that deck in that style. So you are going to hit those awkward turns sometimes in those awkward games. But does it hit it often enough, and you get wins with it often enough is the key. And we'll be tracking those win rates, obviously, as the weekend goes through. Especially interested in Quest Warlock, of course. But this does mean that it's still Druid Demon Hunter versus Hunter and Rogue. And again, it really is just the Druid for me as a question mark. And honestly, with these decks, maybe it's the Hunter as a question mark for me for Bunnyhoppor. Is the one that might be tough.
Yeah, so how do you feel generally about Hunter versus Druid? Because, we've talked in terms of, like, obviously Glowfly Swarm is a beating. Obviously that doesn't happen every game. And I would imagine, in Hunter, in general, is quick and aggressive enough to, deal with Mount Seller a lot of the time, being the win condition. So how do you feel about that matchup overall as the Hunter player?
Honestly, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it really does just feel like if they play Glowfly, I am scared. And if they don't, I am very, very confident. And that is as simple as it could be. I think anything else isn't as important, because by the time Mount Seller comes down, if they haven't Glowflyed you, you probably have a fairly sturdy board to punch through it. There are, certain tools that help with dealing with Mount Seller as well. I'm just going to quickly check one of the lists. And the fact that, you run Zephrys, Faceless Corrupt, Rotten Straight, Varanus is powerful, Tiamat. All those can help deal with the Mount Seller turn. Most of those don't help versus the Glowfly. So it really is just, do they stick Glowfly? Or even, in some worlds, like early Rising Winds, if you've got a bad opening hand, can be tough. But really, it's just, you just can't respond to a Glowfly turn, is the biggest struggle.
Okay.
But outside of that, it's been pretty good.
It's not going to be the matchup. Could still see it, but if Boar can find a way to get out of a win here with his Druid, he's probably feeling pretty good about the matchup that he ended up with here. Rogue very rarely has enough ability to deal with all the threats that can come down as quickly as they can come down against Druid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, I feel like Druid just hits a critical mass, and because of the nature of how it creates minions with Mount Seller, Flick just doesn't get the job done. Unless you make 18 King Muklas, maybe, and then your name's Falcone. BoarControl, already upset by those things.
Yeah, doesn't find the fungal, doesn't find the ramp this time around. It's worth noting, I guess, that yeah, he discarded both Mount Sellers in last game, but he did also have double Fungal Fortunes, double Overgrowth in his opening hand, so, you know.
It's like the best and worst moments. Oh, I discarded 2 Mount Sellers. Oh, that's unlucky. I did draw a lot of cards with Fungals, though, and it's like, that's why.
So
best of both.
many options. Choose soon.
Bunnyhoppor here, just picking away, getting this Praise Galakron down, getting these invokes down early as possible to unlock the Galakron a little bit later on. Something I think you really do want to have is the max Galakron to deal with this potential late game from BoarControl. Just the maximum you can get to.
And Boar has continued to draw spells here, which at least will make his Innovate Glowfly Swarm do something, even though he hasn't hit the Fungal Fortunes, but whether or not that's a play he even wants to go for, because again, unless he finds something to back that up off the top here, it would be Innovate Glowfly Swarm into pass a couple of turns, which, you know, ideally when you start going with Druid, you want to continue just going full throttle for every single turn after that point that you elect to start. Wait a second. Does Bunny just play a natural prep in his deck?
Huh?
He does.
Oh, he does? Yeah, I completely missed it. Huh.
Wow.
And also, slightly disappointed, not playing Bamboozle, but he's playing double Questing, double Dirty Tricks, double Ambush.
Yeah, Questing Adventurers do make prep make a lot more sense as a card. And since the nerf, it's really been like a lot of... It's been hard to justify getting into a deck because it's hard to play enough cheap spells that are worth discounting, right? Like, prep was a given when you had Fan of Knives and all these other free cost cards that you could get full value out of the prep with. But Rogue hasn't really had enough 2-cost spells that you want to be playing all of the time. But now, of course, you have that whole secret package, which you can play for free with the prep, which starts to make it a lot more appealing.
Yep, and even the slight addition of the Praise Galakron's just being a must-play. I mean, although they're not 2 mana, it's still something you can just throw away for.
What was I thinking of again?
BoarControl now working out whether he wants to innovate low fly or just continue into a ramp mill. It's wild growth.
Yeah, you can look at it both ways, right? Like, that is arguably something for him to do next turn, like I was talking about. So he could play his curve as Innovate Glowfly Swarm into Wild Growth into Overflow and go from there. But there is still just like kind of an awkward turn off in the middle there. But there's also an argument to say just get Glowfly Swarm down as early as possible, because the longer you wait, the more options open up for Rogue to be able to deal with it. If we take a look at Bunny's hand, look at how good this hand is at picking apart a Glowfly Swarm. Backstab, Kobold Lackey, and Restless Mummy alongside Shadow Step? Hello?
The Oppa's just got a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Awkward though, because no real payoff.
I wonder.
Where's the Van Cleef, Sol?
I mean, the payoff is all their stuff's dead. That's pretty chill.
Yeah, he's just yeah. The Restless Mummy is good here. It kills off 2 more. Maybe he can get away with not doing that. Is there ever just Praise Galakron?
So many.
Praise Galakron. Shield of Galakron, apologies. There's actually Restless Coin Kobold if he really wants to clear as much of this board off as possible. A lot of options there. I think it's a tough turn.
Yeah, he had the option that turn for anything up to and including a full clear, depending on how many resources he wanted to spend.
I'll leave 2 up. You can use that prep as well to get the 30 tricks. live, which is always good news against Spell Druid because you know it's probably going to go off next turn.
Right. Boar leaves himself with perfect overflow hand size here for the next turn. We'll have to spend a card afterwards, but that's fine. But I think Bunny, like he said, did not want to go all in there and full clearing because he is looking for that payoff, as you were talking about, be it Edwin or be it one of those two questing adventurers that we've been talking about.
I will act as your scaled dragon.
Bunny just happy to keep playing the curve here.
Yeah, I think you just take the advantage of you didn't see another glowfly come down, or you didn't see anything too crazy happen. Bunnyhoppor really just prioritizing clearing off the board.
Wow.
He does have good follower, right? Seal Fate, another Galakron, even the ambushes get some work done, especially versus a Mount Seller turn. Although to a certain extent, if you're expecting Bog Beam, maybe versus Mount Seller. Wow. That's just...
It is. 1 in of 8 down, though, so that Glowfly Soul is not active just yet. Neither is the Acera, so Boar's still lacking anything particularly powerful to do next turn, and right on time. I think Bunny tried to greed it for at least one turn, but as soon as he commits the Lackey and the Shadow Step, here comes the Questing Adventurer.
So many options.
I wonder if this ever starts off like setting up for the questing, not necessarily this turn. Maybe go Seal Fate phase. Or maybe just a second Shield of Galakron. That's just really good. Just 2 4/5s on the board.
Give me a quest.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just put more Lackeys in your hand, then playing the Shield of Galakron certainly seems better than casting the Seal Fate that turn. Evasive Faewing, very good card against Druid. Wax a Dread, much better card overall. The game's going to go long enough anyway.
And I think if Bunnyhoppor was playing on BoarControl's time schedule of mana, then the next year wouldn't be the worst idea either, but a little bit too far away there. This road. Ooh, Ironbark though. It'd be nice for the Acera afterward. It could just be Glowfly, Bug Beam, and Crystal Power this turn. I don't think that's too bad.
Yeah, it seems fine. It seems like you want to use hold on to this Fungal Fortunes in hand until after the Acera comes down.
Exactly, yeah.
So any play this turn that doesn't involve that does seem to involve Glowfly Swarm this turn. It's just kind of a bummer that you can't just immediately drop Soul of the Forest like you want to.
It is. I think, though, that if you play it now and it gets cleared up, it probably demands quite a lot of attention from Bunnyhoppor, which means, 1, probably not dead, and 2, it probably does just give you the time for the Acera plays. I like this overall.
So this is interesting. Committing to full clearing here means that you don't have a removal spell left in hand for next turn. Like, say this secret is Ambush, right? Which you now know it is because it's not Dirty Tricks and Bunny doesn't play Bamboozle.
Yep.
You don't have a way to kill the 2/3 after you play your Acera next turn.
The outcome, the plan is, well, he's not going to kill all these Glowflies.
Yep. In which case, who needs to play minions when I can just Soul of the Forest my board or Savage Roar and kill my opponent?
Yep.
Makes sense.
Or even just trade it all off and then trade a couple off, play your Sarah, trade the rest off. If you really wanted to go for that plan as well. A lot of options here for BoarControl, honestly.
Choose soon.
Yeah, the only thing to really be concerned about here would be Flick, I guess. That's the only
Right.
world where my point is super relevant. Soil of the Forest, Savage Roar, Ironbark for +1, Moonfire for +1. It's not 37, is it?
Ah, yes.
Was he drawing for more damage?
Power of the Wild, yeah. Well, there
Second
is
Savage
Power of the
Roar.
Wild. There's
The
two
second Savage
Powers
Roar,
of the
too.
Wild.
Just gotta be, hasn't it?
You never count this, Raven.
No.
It's just always lethal.
I never count when it's close, Sol.
Yeah, fair enough.
Never mind when it's not.
He can do exactly 7 as well as a breakpoint, so that's not a problem.
He had the Moonfire as well, so he needed.
Yep.
There you go. Oh. Like the damage adds up to me exactly. Didn't even need the Moonfire either. What a swing for the face, and that's going to be BoarControl going 2-1 up versus Bunnyhoppor, and that Druid getting the win again. Talk a lot about Druid, a lot about Quest Warlock so far this weekend, but those two decks are the question marks for me. And BoarControl has had wins with both of them so far, and now only has his Demon Hunter to go with. And taking a quick glance at his Demon Hunter list, it is a little bit spicy, honestly. There's one Vulpera, one Crimson Sigil Runner, and one little Mana Burn in there, which might come in clutch. We've seen some players flirt with it with a Mana Burn or two here and there. Mainly, I think Hunter Ace was running 2 a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I think Tom60229 was running it in that same week, and then we saw Silvername the week after play Mana Burn, I believe, as a follow-up. 2014 World Champion Silvername, as we ended up christening him. Yeah.
I do think it is, for me, a card that gets so close to making it in the list, but just maybe it's better in tournament play because you're not expecting some of the other classes. If you say you're going to ban Warrior, I think it's much worse against Warrior, but then going against you go against Druid, you potentially going against Mage and certain classes that have very clear power spike turns. I think it's so powerful, but we'll see if it pays off there. There's the list you can see for yourself.
Yeah, interesting. Sigil Runner is still making it for Boar. Hasn't been fully converted to Team Vulpera Scoundrel just yet. We'll see if that Mana Burn can end up coming in clutch against some of these decks from Bunny then.
Yeah, and honestly, I've in my current list, I'm just playing on ladder or whatever. I think I'm running one Sigil Runner, which I put back in the list because it is just I just want to run more cards that just cycle hard through the deck, even though it's much weaker now as a 1-mana 1/1. It's less a turn 1 play or a good turn 1 play like it mainly used to be, and more just a well, if I draw it, it just replaces itself with another card from my deck, which is actually good.
Right. This is the list here from Bunnyhoppor on Highlander Hunter. It's kind of the best of both worlds list, as I like to call it, where he's playing extra early game. And hold on to your hats, Raven. I think this is the list where now Grand Slam makes the most sense because you're playing a very, very, very low curve with like the extra 2-drops in the deck and so on. So suddenly your ability to run out of cards does accentuate a little bit because of the extra minions you're playing in the 2-drop spot, like Bone Chewer Brawler, for example. So just having that one extra greedy card that, as you like to say, just does so many things for one card is actually pretty effective in the deck.
Yeah, I mean, although Sol did a very terrible and offensive impression of me there, all I heard in that whole statement was, Raven, you were right all along.
It wasn't an impression, it was just a generic insulting voice to use.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounded eerily similar to how I think I sound, Sol. So. It got me real deep there. I thought you were just a really good impressionist.
Wow. Maybe I just have this untapped talent I didn't know about.
Just like Bunnyhoppor does for having the Felmore on 2.
Yep.
I enjoyed, so for those of you who clearly won't know, which is everyone that isn't the casters,
I got you, friend.
Sol played Hunter versus Quest Warlock, and I had Felmore, I think, almost every game on 2, or on turn 1 with coin. It was
4 out of 5, Raven. It was 4 out of 5.
Almost every game.
Yep.
It was glorious.
Yeah, when the matchup we were testing was Quest Warlock, turns out that is pretty much the one card in the early game that beats you up pretty hard.
So did Nightgrand Slam, if I recall, a couple of... Having this Zephrys, though, from Bunnyhoppor does open up some nice removal tools, or even potentially tempo tools, that Hunter can struggle a little bit with if Demon Hunter gets ahead on board first. Because what Bunnyhoppor really wants to focus on now is less pushing damage or racing, and more just completely removing BoarControl's minions off board at almost any cost. At least it's the way I've found to have the most success. It's just any cost at all to remove their minion. Really, meh options. Sign up in the go for you. Oh, Prime Order Explorer. Why not just re-roll next turn?
Yeah, I mean, you say pretty meh options, but honestly, these 2/3 poisons are pretty trolly against Demon Hunter. Don't really have that many ways of dealing with them efficiently if they're not already through the point of the game where, like, Warglaives is active. Like, Board just has no good trades available right now. Just has to freeze it, deal with it later. Even then, it's not really an efficient-looking way to deal with it.
Right. Actually, BoarControl's singing or verbalizing his frustration. Yeah, he's okay with that trade, though.
Yeah, apparently it does matter. I was going to say it doesn't matter what you say, Boar. It's still just going to go face. But no, apparently Boar's pleading worked.
What's the Zephrys offering this to? Just pain? I'm not saying you do it necessarily. I'm just... What's the offer?
You'd get the Kirin thing. I never remember the name of this minion. It's relevant of Zephrys multiple times. To the priest Kirin Chaplain, is that what it's called?
Probably.
The priest minion that gives +2 health to 2/3.
Yeah.
You get that for sure.
I'm gonna go with more poison. This makes sense though, because again, like I said, these, although not actively do it, they kind of do the job of removing minions from board. Ooh, I-beam though.
Yeah, I-beam was 100% the pull that Boar needed here, I think.
Soul Cleave, not too shabby either, just obviously not the mana this turn to play it. And it does mean he just keeps coin for hero power coin. Blade Band Adept.
Yeah.
Demons.
Yeah, the nutty draw off the top there for Boar was just Twin Slice, because then he could Twin Slice coin Gladebound Adept, full clear, and be pushing damage with minions. But without that being available, I think I-beam off Volpira was about the next best thing that could happen to him that turn. This looks like a tough hand to beat, though, the way that Boar's curve has been fairly slow so far, and the way these 2/3 poisons have just shut them down.
Most importantly, the way this Boom Pistol's going to shut down this Gladebound.
I wonder.
Colteran Chaplain, according to our production chat. Okay, thanks.
Oh, Colteran.
Colteran? Okay. Yeah. Imagine being a role player, Raven.
I wonder.
One's got to do it. Boom Pistol Bully, for me, is just, although you might think, oh, well, yeah, if he has Gladebound in hand, of course it's good. If he doesn't, it's bad. Well, BoarControl has the coin, which means that is your #1 priority, is not to be hero power coin Gladebound this turn and completely lose control of the board. So yeah, whichever way you slice it, I think this is a really good play here from Bunnyhoppor.
It is, and it looks like in response, Boar's just going to have to rip this Metamorphosis at a minion. Which is fine. He's still maintaining some semblance of ball control here, and he still has high quality cards in hand. He still now has that Gladebound play set up for the next turn. Problem is, he's just not really getting there with the damage, and I don't think this board control is going to hold for particularly long after this point.
Yep, and the fact that Bunnyhoppor hasn't had to use Zephrys early in this game means that he could be on the plan of just saving Zephrys for a worst case. And okay, or again, worst case, emergencies, whichever word I use isn't really going to describe what I want, but either healing in a bad scenario or lethal in a good scenario, right? Is what I'm going for, because a lot of the time you are forced onto the Zephrys in the early game against Demon Hunter just to lock out one of the more pesky minions. But as you quite rightly pointed out, the the Primordial Explorer into Primordial Explorer was just such a pain for BoarControl to deal with. It's not needed to use the hard mode.
Oh,
Quickly.
All face. Just really good.
I beam off the top. Oh, sorry, yeah, Twin Slice off the top was what I was going to attempt to call. It doesn't work now because I said the name of the wrong card. I was thinking potentially this allows Boar to set up some kind of counter-lethal swing over the course of a couple of turns.
It's a lot of damage.
I grow
Here, he couldn't have, without the help of the Twin Slice, he couldn't have activated his Claybound this turn.
Well, I'm thinking if it's even
could have
Altruist
activated it and
instead.
played it.
I'm thinking if it's even Altruist instead. And then get the weapons down, and then you have hero powers on the following turn with Gladebound with a weapon already equipped.
Okay. I was just wondering, like, doesn't Altruist just always get better?
Not if you're playing any of these cards this turn.
You don't play the Gladebound on one Twin Slice, right?
Okay, so then next turn you've drawn one card, and you've spent one card this turn that you could have used. So you hasn't got any better. Yeah, so it's just like the line to me.
Does mean there's what? 4, 5, 10 damage just from hand next turn. 11 if you include that second hero power from BoarControl.
Right.
Got them out. Now unleash Zephrys heal. A little bit awkward actually.
I wonder.
It is. Is it one of those Soul Cleave Gamer kind of turns? It kind of looks like that. Doesn't quite work.
You want to go
Fairy Dragon Zephrys
trade?
Soul Cleave? Yeah, it's pretty good, right? Zephrys Hammer the 1/1. Fairy Dragon. Sorry, yeah, Fairy Dragon Hammer the 1/1 Zephrys Soul Cleave. It's pretty good.
Problem is though, although Soul Cleave is good right now, I don't think it's the level of power you'd want Zephrys to actually win this game. That's
Sure.
the scary bit.
That is true.
I'm not saying he shouldn't do it, but it's just that's the drawback of having to go for the Soul Cleave if he wants to.
Right.
I think you need Zephrys to win you the game, not just survive you a turn right now.
Right.
Maybe Bunnyhoppor's noticed this. Go for slightly alternative route. It only takes 1 damage here and clears the board, so definitely not terrible.
Ooh. Oh me, oh my, Raven.
So what is BoarControl afraid of here?
It's exclusively Zephrys, right?
I
It's
grow
the only card he has to be
impatient.
concerned about.
But even if that's the case, is that actually changing your turn? It surely isn't, right? Job done.
Not in any way that I can think of, no.
Because the fear factor of Zephrys, okay, if they have Zephrys, they can heal. But if you don't do anything, they don't need to heal. If they don't have Zephrys, you just win. So I think that's, especially against Hunter, 19 cards left in the deck. And also, you know that Alex Straza's not a fair either because he's on 8 mana. I think this is as good as it's going to get here for BoarControl.
Okay, so you could play your 5 health minion instead of your 4 health minion. That way, Bunny can't just say, okay, great, the board's dead, I'll just use Zephrys to heal, end turn, and spend the rest of my mana, right? Like, at least that way he has a problem that needs to be solved in that the board is slightly over-contested. I guess that's the only thing I can consider to play around Zephrys.
But then he doesn't kill the Twilight Drake with the trade anyway.
Right.
So then it's still a minion. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is
It's
what
not very
Bunny
good.
does, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good, I'm just saying, it's a thing.
Welcome to my world, Sol. Here comes the Zephrys, though. Still, with BoarControl still on 23, he's still got time.
He does still have some time, indeed.
At least that wasn't a lay on hands.
Okay. That's an amount of damage.
So big questions start hitting now. Does and should BoarControl play the Kayn this turn? Or does he need to save Kayn for, say, the worst case? See him at Alex Straza into Taunt Dragon. Because if he plays Kayn, it deals 3 and dies.
Yep. But it also means that 6 damage is not going to your face if that happens.
Correct.
Which means that you then have extra time to draw Skull, draw additional damage off the top. The Siamat question does interest me. I was about to say I'm not playing around randomly generated taunts from Dragon Queen Alexstrasza ever in this situation. But the fact there is at least one card in the deck, in fact there's a Bone Chewer Brawler as well, which can actually be playable taunts that Boar has to play around, then maybe that is worth considering a bit more. Boar's just even going to go back to protecting his Kayn on board, it looks like.
I also like this, though, because what this does is make Bunnyhoppor have to have a dragon or this weapon's gone.
Sure.
Which is a pretty nice play on 6. If the weapon's gone again, it buys BoarControl way more time.
That's also very fair, yep.
So if if Bunnyhoppor could swing face, trade the 2 minions into Kayn, and then play another big minion and still have the weapon for maybe drawing a dragon the turn after, those are the games you lose because you just die, right? Whereas at least this says you need a dragon in hand, or this weapon's going to go bye-bye for good.
Right.
This, though, pretty good.
How about a new life?
So now Boar has 2 Skulls remaining, 2 Warglaives. He has the Glaive-bound Adept. There's the Glaives.
You just lock it in, right? Simple.
It's 4 damage this turn, 4 damage next. Sign me up.
And honestly, there isn't much that Bunnyhoppor can do about it. He's not close to lethal.
Nope.
Okay.
Don't Tamer Bran.
But Bran's often lethal, okay? I mean, outside of exactly Bran, he isn't that close to lethal.
Dragonbane as well, actually.
Nag Grand Slam is. If Nag Grand Slam wins this game.
Demons.
It is. It's Nag Grand Slam, it's Bran, it's Dragonbane. I think all of those are lethal. Nothing else is.
But trading doesn't impact that in any way, right?
Nope.
The BoarControl killing these minions doesn't actually change anything. Job done.
I mean, yeah, you can say if it doesn't change anything, you might as well kill them.
Oh,
but
sure.
Yeah,
I just mean
it doesn't really change anything.
Okay, it doesn't change anything in the near future.
Yep. Varanus is nothing. Big ol' wealth.
Look at the draw for a taunt. Not gonna be it.
Well fought.
And sigh of relief as BoarControl takes the victory.
It did change something, right? Because the Bone Chewer Brawler was in the deck, and he only left himself with 1 remaining charge of the Warglaives. If we hadn't seen Bone Chewer Brawler that deck, then that was still an out, because Boar only had 1 charge left on his Warglaives. He'd hit the 2/3, and then he'd only be able to hero power the face.
Yeah, and that would be 1 off, right?
Pretty sure.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, yeah. The Bone Chewer Brawler was a potential out there, but BoarControl does end up taking the series regardless, and he is going to look ever so comfortable there. But I believe that puts Bunnyhoppor at a 3-3 score now, which means he's in the mix and not in a good way so far. So it'll look a little bit more dicey for him. Potentially, there's a chance that he can be in that the relegation bracket. But just a reminder, is Division A, so it does mean that even if you are in that relegation bracket, a lot of things still have to go wrong after that for you to be relegated out. But that is the review of the day. We only had 4 matches, but they were good ones. I really enjoyed today, actually. I think this the Druids, the Warlock matchups as well, really just put a shine on this week, or at least this weekend of Grandmasters.
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed today as well. I think it's been a pretty good spread of matchups across the board, a good spread of lineups. The difference between Division A and Division B here, as you see right on time, we had the super tense, everything on the line, ultra relegation impactful series early on in the day, with the likes of Zim and Calento and so on involved. And then a little bit more of a chill one over in Division A, but it does still very much matter, with these players fighting for seedings, fighting for the ability to lock themselves in and not have to mess around with that relegation bracket on the other side. You can see that relegation bracket picture is starting to get a little bit clearer. Felkane picking up a win does give him a huge boost, and like you said, Bunnyhoppor has been dragged down a little bit. But the problem is Silvername just picking up yet another loss here to go down to 1-5, which means he is not going to be able to catch Bunnyhoppor's 3-win record with only 1 match remaining. So it's going to be a minor miracle if anyone else gets dragged down into that bottom 2 than the players in 6th, 7th, and 8th currently in Division A.
Right, and just a small note as well, just looking at Boston's Twitter, he did tweet out an hour or so ago. He said he started the round robin 0-2, being in now with a 4-2 record, and apparently, this is his tweet, not my comment, 100% safe for playoffs, feels unreal, managed to keep calm and pull it back. And it's also his birthday tomorrow, so he's going to be able to enjoy it a lot more with having no stress. So a huge difference there for Boston, honestly. Starting round robin 0-2 and having 4 wins in a row to go from bottom to near the top in Division B must feel fantastic for him as well. So a good job for Boston there. Not losing it, and as he said, just keeping his cool, focusing on the matches every single week has paid off for him so far.
Yeah, it has. I think for sure there's been a couple of stories like that where players have just turned it around after some very slow starts in a couple of positions. It just goes to show how players really just need to keep their head in the game a lot of the time. And a slow start, even in a short format, as I guess you can call the round robin, even though GM as a whole overall isn't, doesn't really mean death, because you can always make the comeback. We've seen that with Boston. We've seen it with Casey. We've seen it with multiple other players as well.
Yeah, it is, but that is going to be us done for the day as our 4 matches are over. But we are back tomorrow with 5 more, and then on Sunday, of course, with another 5 for you guys. But before we go, it's Saul's favourite part of the day. Go ahead.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I just gave you the dramatic pause for the sake of it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here to Hearthstone Esports, which I'm pretty sure is the only place you can now be watching this broadcast, as the split stream has come to an end. So make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you ring that bell, and please do check out all of our original content, from Hot Takes with myself and TJ, Mullet Over with Gia, The Curve with Raven, Top 5 Moments with Derek Brown, and also you can set reminders for any of our streams when they go live so you don't miss any of the action for the region that you want to follow.
Yeah, it's been short and sweet for us today, but thanks a lot for watching. We appreciate it, and we'll see you over the weekend. But for now, we've actually got Froden and Doa, I believe, coming up for the Americas, as TJ has a few things to sort out this weekend. But for now, we are done for the day, and we will see you tomorrow.